Something else we can do with numbers, we can take their absolute value, that's what we did in the previous examples. We can also do something called taking an opposite of a number. And the opposite of a number changes its sign. So if it was a positive number, we make it negative. We indicate the opposite of by this little dash. This is the same dash that we use when we're saying a negative number. But you have to be a little careful. It does actually mean a different thing. This means change the sign of it. So you can say the opposite of 3. You can see I have the 3 in parentheses here to emphasize that this is an operation in and of itself. It's not saying negative 3. This one is saying negative 3, though. All right. You can have the opposite of negative 6, which is saying change the sign of your negative 6. It was a positive number, or sorry, it was a negative number. It becomes a positive number. This one says change the sign of your 0. Well, the opposite of 0 is just 0, so there is no real changing the sign of that number. So this leads into how we subtract negative numbers. In general, to do subtraction, what we do is we change it to adding the opposite of the second number. So we started out with a negative 7 minus 5. I'm going to change this to adding, so the second number here, the operation is negative, or is subtraction rather. The second number is a 5. It's a positive 5 that I'm subtracting from the 7. But what I'm doing here is I'm changing it to a negative 5 by changing this to addition. But the reason I'm doing this is because now that I've written it as addition, I can use all those rules that we just learned for addition. I don't need to learn separate rules for subtraction, which is really nice because, well, you know, there's a lot of operations. There's arguably there's a bunch of different operations, but in any case, we don't want to have to learn separate rules for all these different things. We want to reuse the same rules as much as possible. And it turns out there's a relationship between subtraction and addition that allows us to do this sort of thing. So negative 7 plus negative 5, these are two negative numbers. When I add them together, I end up with, well, 5 plus 7 is 12. I end up with negative 12. All right, 8 minus 19, this is 8 plus a negative 19, so this is my subtraction. This is my second number, so you can see I changed my second number to a negative 19 by changing this to addition. It looks like I'm just throwing a plus in here. And in some ways, I mean, yeah, I guess if you're just looking at the symbols, that's what I'm doing. But it's a little more involved than that. It's changing it to addition. So instead of writing subtraction, I'm writing it as addition. And the second number is now the opposite of what it used to be. 8 plus negative 19. Now I can use my rules for addition. 19 minus 8 is 11. The 19 was the negative one, and it's the one with the bigger absolute value, so we end up with a negative 11. All right. 4 minus negative 4. We're taking 4 and subtracting a negative 4. So I'm going to change it to addition by taking the opposite of this number, 4 plus 4. This is, sometimes people say that this has kind of a double negative, then two negatives cancel each other out, or I don't know what you want to call it. If you're taking the opposite of a negative number, it becomes a positive number. So, you know, however you remember that, that's fine. This one, again, we're subtracting a negative number, so it's going to become adding, well, the opposite of negative 8 is positive 8. We get negative 12 plus 8. Now we can apply the rules for addition. These are opposite sign numbers, so I'll go ahead and do 12 minus 8, which is 4. The 12 is negative, so we end up with a negative 4. All right, on this one, we have some number of fourths and some number of sixteenths. In order to be able to add or subtract these, I'm going to have to convert them to have the same denominator. But I also suppose I should probably deal with the fact that this is subtraction. So we have a negative, I'll deal with the subtraction first. Negative 3/4 minus, or plus a negative 5/16. You can see I changed the subtraction to addition, and I just it kind of looks like I just moved the negative over into this second fraction, and I kind of did. All right, so now I want to make them so they have the same denominator, and 16 is their common denominator, so I'll multiply both the top and the bottom of this number by 4 to give me negative 12 over 16 plus negative 5 over 16. Now I can add them together to get negative 17 over 16. 12 and 5, they're both negative. Adding those together, I get 17. And of course it's negative because they were both negative. All right, in this one, when I'm doing this whole changing the sign of whatever follows the negative, or the subtraction rather, it's only the number that follows the subtraction. So it's only this negative 3 that will change. I'll get negative 3 plus, or sorry, negative 2 plus, changing this from subtraction to addition by taking the opposite of this one. It's a positive 3, because it was a negative 3, and plus negative 1. At this point, now I can, now I have addition, I can kind of move things around, and I like to add my negative numbers together first before I add on my positive numbers. So adding those two together, kind of moving them next to each other, we get negative 3 plus 3. And well, 3 minus 3 is 0. Neither of those is farther from and neither of those has the larger absolute value, but it doesn't matter because it's a 0. There is no negative 0. All right, we can do this multiple times even. So if we have a negative 3 here, we can, we were subtracting 9, so I'll say this is plus a negative 9. We were subtracting negative 7, so this is plus a positive 7. We're adding a negative 8 and adding 2. You can see all I did here is I changed this one to subtraction, this subtraction to addition, and this subtraction to addition. Now I'll go ahead and move things around so all the negative numbers are together, and all the positive numbers are together. So I could even be a little bit more strategic. I'm actually seeing that 7 plus 2 is 9, and actually when I add that together with the negative 9, those will all kind of cancel each other out. I'll get a 0 there. 7 plus 2 is 9, 9 plus negative 9 is 0, so ultimately I would just get a negative 11 here, because the negative 3 and the negative 8 combine together. Or I could have done, what is this, negative 20, when I add all those three together. This is a positive 9, negative 20, a positive 9, 20 minus 9 is 11. I could do it that way. Alright, on this example we have 0 plus a negative 26, because I'm changing my subtraction to addition. And adding 0 doesn't change the value of a number, so we just get negative 26. Negative 17 minus 0 is negative 17 plus the opposite of 0, but, well, adding 0 doesn't change a number, so we get negative 17. And this one, negative 4 minus negative 4. This is negative 4 plus 4, because I'm changing this from subtraction to addition by taking the opposite of my negative 4. And I'm 4 minus 4 is 0, so I end up with 0 here.